And I'm back with some more Magic Online 1v1 Commander. The new ban list has landed, and Vile Smasher did in fact get banned, which is probably a good thing. It was doing far too well. So, I'm playing Leav Control, since I didn't want to try to get a new deck shell, and Grixis Control is still pretty fun. In addition to Vile Smasher being banned, other relevant hits were Ponder, Preordain, and Brainstorm. Which does hurt a little bit, especially since Jaleva wants a very high density of spells, and I want a high density of cheap cards. Those are very nice to have. Some things that have swapped in their place, Gataxian Probe, which goes with the Cabal Therapy, which I'm trying out, has some interesting synergies with bounce effects, with sacking Jaleva to refresh her cache of cards, as well as on the high end, Cruel Ultimatum and Emrakul. I've been having trouble closing the game out. I think these might help with that. Emrakul might be a little bit too hard to cast in this deck. It's something I'm trying. Cruel Ultimatum is just pretty fun, and I just wanted to try it. Also, Treachery was hit, which is a little bit unfortunate, but that doesn't really do much to the deck. I swapped that off for Hero's Downfall, since it fulfills much of the same role and actually deals with Planeswalkers as well. So that's about the changes to the deck as far as I remember. Mana base is still kind of not ideal. We have a ton of basics, which I would like to get upgraded, but I just don't want to spend the money right now, and that does come up in one of my matches, unfortunately, so I'm going to walk through some matches. Today I played 6 games, 3 of them in the casual queues, and 3 of them in the 1v1 2-player queues. These are paid events for play points, where the prize is also play points. They aren't full leagues, so it's a bit less of an investment. I feel more comfortable playing them with an untested deck. So let's walk through some of these games. So this first replay is against Zerg Robel Striker, the premier aggro commander in the metagame. I keep a slightly sketchy hand. It has a repeal for some early interaction. Vampiric Tutor to hopefully find some way of stabilizing more firmly. They land a Goblin Guide. Unfortunately, I don't hit a land here. And I actually vamp for Baral. So the plan here is to just get Baral down and start blocking, be able to repeal for cheaper, Reality Shift for cheaper. Unfortunately, that won't happen as they have Shard Valley to kill Baral. And they also play Zergo naturally, so Goblin Guide gets in again, no land to be found. Which is a shame because now I miss my 3rd land drop. Here I make a pretty big mistake in not repealing. I definitely should have repealed the Zergo here. There was no way they were going to dash it, so they would have just played it, and it's the same thing as if I had repealed it during their turn, except that I don't get to try to draw a land and hit that land drop. So I think that was a mistake, and unfortunately it kind of sets me back a whole lot this game since I'm playing behind 1 land. You see, I would have hit a land there, and in fact another land after that, so Goblin Guide would have still given me a card. So that was a pretty huge error, and I'm going to try to recover from that with Inquisition. Inquisition finds a number of cards to take. I choose Scab Clan Berserker. This card is very nasty for a control deck to play against. I just don't want to see them land it. In addition, they have Rift Bolt, Flames of the Bloodhand, and Flame Javelins. This is all very scary, 2 4-damage spells and 1 3-damage spell. The moment they hit a land, they have a lot of damage in their hand. That's sort of the frightening thing about these red decks in the Commander games, is that they're willing to play the 3-mana burn spells, which gives them a lot more reach than the equivalent modern decks, which they need for in the 30-life format. So, now I have Reality Shift, Far Away. Rakdos Charmed is basically nothing against this deck. Rude Chanter's Pike is dead, and I'm in a pretty bad place. I make, I think, another mistake here in Reality Shifting Zergo. And this is a mistake because while it does prevent 2 damage this turn and gives them a creature of the same size, they can now just recast Zergo. So now I'm going to be taking an additional 2 damage on subsequent turns. That was definitely an error. I'm going to play Jaleva. I know they're going to kill it, but I'm hoping this will buy me time to Far and Away. They do in fact kill it with the Rift Bolt, and now I'm in a very bad place. I'm going down to 14 life, and they have, if you count it, 8 damage in hand available. So this is a very scary place for me to be on only 4 lands. You can see I didn't draw a land once again this turn, so I'm forced to actually Intuition for triple land. This lets me cast Dimir Charm, otherwise I would have only been casting Dimir Charm this turn and not hitting land drops, and I need to be able to get this Far and Away online if I have any chance of recovering. So they swing in with 3 creatures. I'm going to Dimir Charm, I believe the Morph, or rather Manifest. Reason being, they can just replay Zergo, and Goblin Guide is just a worse 2/2. So they're going to just Flame Javelin my face while I'm tapped out. Fair enough. And we now have 6 lands. And are in an incredibly scary situation. So now we have 6 life remaining. They have Flame Javelin in hand that we know about, as well as Flames of the Blood Hand. So if they hit in with either one of these creatures and are able to cast one of those 2 spells, we will just be dead. So this is the time that it is completely necessary to fuse Far and Away. In this case, bouncing Goblin Guide and killing Zergo. It costs them way more to replay Zergo from the command zone, and if they have Goblin Guide out, I'm more likely to hit land drops. Now, they play Shrine of Burning Rage, which is unfortunate in some respects since it's a very scary card, but fortunate in others in that it actually makes Rakdos Charm live. They couldn't have known that I had that, but it's pretty nice. Now I draw Emrakul here, obviously way far off from that, and I'm forced to just recast Jaleva. So, they have used Flame Javelin, which means they only have Flames of the Blood Hand. Flames of the Blood Hand cannot kill Jaleva, so my hope is, as long as they don't draw any 3 damage burn spell that hits creatures, I can dodge the Goblin Guide, hopefully dodge 6 damage to the face, and be generally okay. And in fact, that's pretty much what happens. They get a counter on Shrine, and they play Zozu the Punisher, which is basically fine with me. It's just a 2/2. Now, of course, if I had any lands to play, that would be bad, but I don't have any lands to play, so that's kind of cool. And regardless, Jaleva has this pretty cool card, Pyroclasm, under her, that was given to me by my kind opponent over here. So Pyroclasm will just wipe off their field. Not sure why they played into that, but I'm not going to complain about it. So, obviously not equipping Pike since I want to keep up Countersquall for something scary. They play Goblin Hauler, Ember Hauler instead. I'm just going to Impulse with Jaleva, and here's where I start to stabilize. Pick up Condescend. Now I have multiple counters in hand as well as removal. I probably could have equipped Runeshader's Pike this turn, but I don't really want to. I want to keep my options open. I'm going to Murderous Cut the Ember Hauler. I'm doing this during their turn, so they'll waste a mana during their turn, since I know they have 3 mana spells in hand, and they pass back. I equip the Runeshader's Pike now, and you see that Jaleva is now an 11-3, so this is a 2-turn clock. Jaleva picks up Lightning Bolt, taking them to 25, and then to 13, which means that they're now dead to both commander damage and regular damage. They play their Flames of the Blood Hand with no remaining mana, and I go ahead and counter that with Countersquall. Even if they have something like, is it Fire Blast? I think it's Fire Blast. I still have Condescend up for 1. So this will actually be game against my opponent here. This is a very, very close match, made closer by a couple of pretty bad misplays. On to the next round. Our next opponent here has a very different strategy. They are on Leav Old Emissary of Trust. This is what I consider one of my worst matchups, along with Brea. They just have a better commander than me, essentially. They have a commander that shuts off my deck inherently rather than just maybe accruing value later. Brea is a problem because it kills my commander while just beating face and generally being useful reach-wise. And I keep a pretty sketchy hand, unfortunately, with only 2 islands, no colored mana. I'm hoping Consuming Vapors can kill Leav Old and keep it off the table for a turn. I'm hoping Impulse can find me more lands, etc. And I land Thing in the Ice here because I think to myself that there isn't much Leav Old can do for 2 mana that will be a problem for me. Usually their big haymakers are on 3 and 4, Teferi's Puzzle Box, Leav Old himself, but unfortunately I am wrong because my opponent, after cracking and receiving priority, goes ahead and casts Sylvan Library. Now, I've talked before in the Gitrog video about how good Sylvan Library is. I don't think my opponent makes full use of it this game, in that they're not actually drawing many cards off it, they're just using it to filter, but given that they have fetch lands, it's still pretty dangerous. They now cast Portent, which I believe is in place of one of the better cantrips that got recently banned, and they target me with it. I assume they're trying to bury lands to the bottom, given the 2 land situation that they know I have. I missed my 3rd land drop. Happily for me, I have Impulse, so I can get out of that and pick up a mountain, which they had indeed buried 2 cards down. They draw a card off Portent, I play the mountain, and I am unfortunately sort of just sitting here. And it gets sort of worse because they don't play Leav Old, which means that I can't miscalc it, so instead I draw a card off miscalc, trying to hit that black mana, and I just cannot do it. I have 2 islands and 2 mountains. Now, to talk about the mana base for a bit, if I had fetch lands and if I had dual lands, I would definitely not have this many basics in the deck. This is what I consider the biggest weakness of the deck at the moment, but happily I pick up Steam Vents or at least have Cryptic Command online, despite not having any black mana. So they go ahead and Demonic Tutor for I don't know what, unfortunately, and cast Leav Old. I was hoping they would cast whatever they tutored for. Instead I'm forced to sort of Cryptic Leav Old because that's just too dangerous to let sit around. and even worse, they have misdirection. And this interaction is something that I wasn't really sure of. They misdirect Cryptic Command to misdirection, and then once misdirection resolves, it is off the stack. So Cryptic Command has no legal targets, fizzles, and I don't get to draw a card. So that's unfortunate. Happily, I find a counterspell, even if it's not a black mana source, so I can hopefully get rid of whatever Haymaker they intend to land next. And that Haymaker is Liliana the Veil, which I will try to counterspell. It gets rid of Thing in the Ice, it starts pressuring my hand, I don't really want that. Unfortunately, they do have counter magic backup in Prohibit. So Liliana will kill Thing in the Ice, as one would expect, and Leav Old swings in. At this point, the game's almost over for me, but I do happily draw a command tower so I can finally get something going. I try to slam Jaleva when Liliana can't kill her. This is one of my only opportunities to get her on the field. Unfortunately for me, they have Go for the Throat. So my opponent has pretty much had everything they needed to deal with whatever I had, and I think that's mostly because of the Sylvan Library. Once again, that slight misplay of choosing to play Thing in the Ice rather than holding up counter magic is coming to bite me. They have Time Twister, obviously with Leav Old on the field I'll only draw one card, which is Damnation. I don't really want to try to push Damnation because that doesn't really stop Liliana, so I'm just going to try to play Jaleva to force them to minus Liliana. Instead they packed. Sorry, I'm getting kind of behind the gameplay here, but it's pretty self-explanatory, honestly. It's basically just me getting my face pushed in by a deck that's far outvaluing me. I have Mystical Tutor, which is a good counter, so to speak, to Liliana. But, as always, my opponent has the exact answer to it in Counterspell. You can see the Dark Depths here. In the past, I've seen this paired with Thespian Stage to get off of Primeval Titan, which is a pretty compact win condition. I Impulse into nothing and Scoop. So yeah, Leav Old's a very, very hard matchup for this type of control deck. I'm not really sure what the way of beating it is for me. Leav Old or Tasker, I suppose, if Tasker was their commander instead. But with that said, let's move on to the last game. Okay, in this game my opponent is playing Azeri Renegade Leader. Not the best mono green commander by a long shot. There are several I would have played before this, so it's almost certainly just Elf Tribal. I keep this kind of sketchy hand with one land, Thought Scour, and Censor. I figure with the 2 cantrips and being on the draw I can find another land, and Thought Scour is nice in that it actually fuels Murderous Cut here. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to find another land and make this hand pay off, because it's really good if it can actually get going. My opponent goes ahead and plays Sylvan Tutor, which is an invitation for me to Thought Scour them rather than me, milling the Prowling Serpaperd off the top, so that they no longer have access to the nice uncounterable things. I do not find a land, but I do go ahead and cycle Censor here, I believe, to try one more time, find Mana Confluence, which is fantastic, and Duress. Duress finds Revive and, not Serpaperd, Oracle, Forest, and Dark Depths. So here is where Cabal Therapy becomes very good, because now it's just Thoughtseize with upside. So opponent goes ahead and does what I expect, which is to cast Azeri. I still know most of their hand. Now I did draw a land, which means that I will feel free to just Cabal Therapy without impulsing first, otherwise I might have Impulse to try to hit a black land. I can Cabal Therapy, get rid of the Oracle. Alright, unfortunately that game bugged out, so I won't be able to show that one. I'm kind of sad about that, because it was a pretty cool game where I sort of dismantled their entire hand and all their options and pretty much wrecked face. But that's too bad. Anyway, the first 2 games were a pretty good indication of what the deck is trying to do, even if it lost pretty badly the second game. This is what I'm going to be messing around with. It's definitely not as good as Vial Smasher was, but nothing really should be that good. Vial Smasher is stupid. So I hope you enjoyed, and have a good night.